Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session on a very important topic, a very relevant topic. It touches each one of you education at Crossroads, and more importantly, opportunity for startups. I'm really delighted we have Rama over here this afternoon to talk to us on this topic. Rama Subramaniam has very interesting career. She's obviously now the co-founder and managing partner of Ankur Capital, but before that, she has worked in education company, in ITS company. She has been an entrepreneur. She's experienced the other side of the fence, as we call it. And in 2011, she co-founded Ankur. We are delighted she's here. Particularly, I'm happy because she has been one of the pioneers, so to say, or early stage person who has experienced e-learning in its really early days in India. Thank you, Rama, for joining us, and we're delighted you could take time to come on this platform and share your thoughts. Education at Crossroads, Rama. It's a broad topic. Why has it happened suddenly? It was going on a smooth sail. Things were very nice and very smooth. Suddenly, it is at Crossroads. What is it? Why has it happened? What do you expect? Can you throw really broad thoughts on this? Then we'll take it forward from there.
Sure. India has one of the leading education markets, not only because of our population, but also because our focus on education. Right? I mean, the education is always seen as one of the ways in which you would move ahead in life. So parents spend on education, people spend on education, and that being the focus, we have always found a very high, vibrant education industry. Now, education also has two aspects to it. One is the fact that when you have this whole thing of your being able to go ahead in life, and the other part of it is the fact that parents feel that there is a certain that their kids are being taken care of by somebody, and somebody is teaching them. So there's also an emotional part to it that is there. And of course, there's also a childcare part of it. The fact that you can send away your kid for a few hours and then you don't have to take care of the child. So there's lots of aspects of it for child. But the feeling, but the fact that every person needs, there's a certain amount of teaching that's required. It's not everybody cannot do self-learning. And so the whole concept of the academic institutions played a role. We can always go into the fact that the teachers cannot take care of 60 kids, blah blah blah. But the fact is that the academic institution played a significant role that was there. Now, going back about 20 odd decades back, 20 odd years back, in towards the end of the last millennial, around 97, 98, there was a lot of talk on e-learning. And I was at that point of time also taken up by that. And I was part of the founding team of Z Interactive Learning Systems, which was one of the pioneers in the space in 98. And we all thought, yes, that would change, right? And first, I spent more than a decade in that industry before starting off on Quota Capital. And but unfortunately, what remained was the fact that it was always on the fringes. It was always a push product, right? And so it was never a mainstream product in terms of there was never a pull product at all. There were certain segments within that which worked, which was the corporate learning segment, especially around the customized corporate learning was a big tool. And there have been lots of companies in India which built itself based on that, whether it was Tata Interactive, Hurix, so it was quite a few companies that came in the space. Otherwise, largely, technology remained more in terms of the operating systems that were required in academic institutions. And then you had the academic institutions, and there was a little bit that was happening on the side. In about the last 5-6 years, there was again a push because capital came in, and there was a certain segment which was moving towards online. But it still remained a lot of push product. I mean, you still had people on the roads who were selling it. People on feet on the street were selling it. There was all kinds of discounts given. So you look at the paid students versus the full students, you'll see it like in 1%, 2% kind of category. So you really see that it's still a push product and not a pull product, considering that. So the segment managed to get a very, very small fraction of the overall academic. came COVID, which was not something that any of us expected, right? And even in March, all of us thought this would go off in a few months or maybe something. That's the case. We never expected it to be there, what it is today. So it has created major things. One is the fact that there is a um, there's a segment where you could do things online. So till now, where people were hesitant and there was still had doubts, I think that's cleared off in some segments of because the entire education segment is a very, very broad segment. You have K-12, you have adult learning, you have education, self-learning. There's a whole lot of corporate learning elements of it. Now, some of them can definitely be done online. So for example, if you are a corporate learner and you always thought that you had to go for a classroom lecture, you can start doing it like this, sitting in your home to do that, which you thought may not have been effective earlier. I think that has completely shifted. So where it is towards self-learning is towards the employability, the corporate learning segments. All those I think has switched completely. I mean, the fact that you see the convenience part of it, while a lot of us spoke about convenience for the last few decades, but the consumer behavior had still not changed. That has changed in that segment. In the K-12 segment, I would still say that it's still some parts of it could remain online, but it might still go back to the old one. So the crossroads, I think, today is to find out which parts of the consumer segment all of us are taking bets on it to try to understand what it is, right? Which parts of this consumer behavior will be permanent behavior change, and which ones would go back to normal, right? And so you're going to put your money in today, hoping that what is going to happen 24 months from now, 18 to 24 months from now, right? And so that, I think, is looking at what are the bets that we would take. So we at Umport Capital have been analyzing it and trying to talk to people to see is the fact which ones are more permanent, which ones may not change, which ones may change. And so that's, I think, so it's not even that you're seeing the change and say, oh, okay, so I see the change, let me put my money in there. The fact that you're not sure whether this change is permanent is what I think is a crossroads. You never know, should I take the right one or the left one?
So, Rama, the questions have started flowing in, and viewers, if you have questions, please put it up. I will be moderating session. You spoke about e-learning being on the fringe earlier. You spoke about the crossroads. So, Kashyap, a viewer, has asked, can e-learning now become a pull product? And may I kind of add to that is today, suddenly the sector has no choice but to embrace technology in its whatever shape and form is available. From being on the fringe of a, let's say, educational institution of just handling, let's say, the ERP part, now it's gone right in the center of it. And you alluded to the fact that one doesn't know what change is permanent. But isn't the concept of digital being at the heart of education a mainstream concept now? And again, respond to Kashyap saying, is e-learning still a pull or a push product?
So two parts to the question, as I understand. So first is the fact that, yes, e-learning is mainstream now, I agree. Right. But there are some parts of the entire learning exercise which has other components to it. So whether it's social learning, so a kid goes to school, there's a lot of social skills as well the kid learns. And apart from the fact that the parents want the kids away for some time because it's childcare as well, right? So your child is taken care of by somebody. So I think that there are aspects in the K-12 segment. I think that there could be some things which may not change permanently because, and within that itself, so it could be the school segment, but the after-school segment may potentially be a pull product because parents might feel, okay, let my child learn at home. Why increase the child's exposure to stuff? There is stuff that they can do online, and there is one-on-one coaching available. So maybe there is so there would be openness to it. So versus from where they did not invest in that to saying that there are some parts to it that I can do on my own. So e-learning is definitely here to stay. That goes without saying. What segments within those are what we have to see, right? And where would it be pull products? So I definitely think that pull products, it could be in terms of where it is tuition, which is after school learning for
Right.
in the K-12 segment. It could be in terms of let's say newer non-curriculum things that are there. So you would send your child away to learn music or to do something else. Those are things that could still be a pull product because these are things that you are doing additionally. You could perhaps do it online, whatever you can. So it could be like learning electronics or learning something else, learning authoring, whatever that you would need to do. There could be certain segments of that you could do online where parents might be open to doing that. So those segments, I think, could become a pull product and not necessarily a push product. In the employment part of it, I
I was
definitely.
about to ask you, can employability will it because of this thing, will it get a new push? Will there be a lot of pull for online courses? What is your view on that? And what are the? I think maybe you could round it off by let's focus on employability space. What is the scope for startup entrepreneurs? Because there are tons of questions there. They're asking a little bit more, kind of zooming on to opportunities for startup entrepreneurs.
So clearly, see, going forward, what's going to happen is the fact there is going to be a huge unemployment push that's going to be there.
Right.
And even folks who are in the employment already employed as well, they're going to have a lot of competition for career growth as well. So for those two together, the flexibility that e-learning offers could be a huge boon. So one part of it is basically, I think the entire self-learning to for career growth is a given, not just in IT, but could be in any segment as such, because your ability, you realize that I would need to skill myself, I would need to do things that would be needed for me to even grow in your career or even retain your career because today there's so much of competition that it's possible that you may have to do more in order to be at the same place, right? So those two together, I think that anyone who's already employed would definitely look for options. And we were already seeing that in small pockets earlier, but I think that would get a big push going forward as one thing as well. So in the tech space, for example, it was always there. But what used to happen was the fact that the companies were also investing in terms of upskilling people, upskilling employees. I think the employees themselves upskilling will go up significantly. Is one thing, right? In the IT sector, non-IT is also like financial sectors, and all I see that happen as well. In the people waiting to join the employment market, you would try everything possible. So I think that wherever it is linked to employment potential. So I would urge entrepreneurs who are looking at e-learning to see is the fact whether they can connect to the job market. So be it with recruitment agents, be it with companies, trying to focus a lot more on the employability part of it and the ability for you to assure that could be a big could be a
Sure.
big uh, 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 plus
Game
point.
changer. Yeah.
Because without that, it will then again be is the fact, okay, do I need, what will it get me? Right, is one thing. So I think that part where it could be as an employment is one thing. And the second thing could be also be, so for example, even in the self-learning, self-employment space, there is a lot of scope, but you just don't know how to go about it. So even where startups can, for example, tie up with the freelance websites or with companies like which are in the blue collar workspace, whether it's the Dunzos of the world, the Team Leases of the world, and try to build more concrete things that can get people ready for that industry. I think could create a lot more opportunities. So the part that is very focus would you need to focus on is how do you get that employment part of it. That linkage is very critical. Right? I think that
So there's a
does it.
question from, yeah, great answer. So we'll probably come back if there are more questions. But I want to try and cover, all the possible segments in the time we have. So I'll move on to our next segment. There's a question from Abul Rajani. He is saying that although consumption has increased of online courses, prices have dropped significantly. 80%, 90% discounts people are getting. Is there a long-term sustainable revenue model for people consuming online courses?
Good question. I think that's why I said till now it has all been a pull product, right? But sorry, it has always been a push product, not a
Okay.
pull. But if suppose now the customer needs starts, the customer wants it, I think you will go back to what is the value that you are giving the customer. So if the customer knows that I have a job potential at the end of it, then I think that is definitely the reason why the person would pay for it. See, it's just a basic consumer behavior change. I think that during the before the lockdown, everybody would look at prices, right? And even housewives would look at prices before buying anything, groceries as well. But today you find that, and this has been published data surrounding the fact that people are looking at prices much lesser today, right? And because you know that you want it, so you would pay for it. So I
Correct.
don't see that that's going to change. I see that change that means for the e-learning segment as well, for the education segment as well. If I know that if I'm going to get a job at the end of it, why would I not pay for it?
Right.
If the but there's obviously that means that not just the employment, the brand creation, which is the quality of your content, the partnerships that you have, the support that you're giving the student, your focus on quality and brand building are two important things. And if you do that, there is a potential that you can start charging the value for it. And I think that's the behavior change that's the crossroad that I think we would definitely see, is what I see as potential.
So there's a question from a young startup entrepreneur, Nikki. She is also an edtech entrepreneur. She's asking a very simple question. In India, which model will work? Live classroom, one-on-one, one-to-many, recorded, a quick response. And then I'm going to ask you a slightly more detailed question. That's a combination, a lot of questions.
Right. Sorry, and just to the previous question itself, I wanted to add that one of the reasons why a lot of the companies have not succeeded is because of the fact that the price that you can charge is so small, and the
Right.
volumes are not picked up. Right, and
Sure.
that's what we are all waiting to change. See the change. So I'm sure that would happen, and that's the segment should take care of that. Right. Now, coming to this question is the fact that I think that all of them would have its role to play. There's not going to be one particular thing, right? Now, if you were to look at it that in the after-school tuition segment, I think parents would be willing to pay the price if they know for sure that there is going to be attention given to the child. The child will be taken care of for an hour and will be taught. I think that one-to-one would definitely be something that parents would look for as well. So I think that is something that I would bet that would work in that segment. If it is self-learning in very, very highly specialized skills or something, then you might want to do one-on-one. But otherwise, you should be open to do one-on-many. So if you are doing an IAS coaching and you have, if there have been students who have been willing to sit in a auditorium with 1,000 other students and hear a master tutor speaking on the stage, whatever I mean, you always had doubts as to what did they gain by sitting in a room of 1,000 people, or maybe more as well, right? I mean, you hear about these stories. So I don't see any reason why in a e-learning space why that would not happen. So if I'm, for example, teaching IAS coaching, and if I'm in Ranchi or if I'm in a small place, why would I need to go to Delhi for my classes?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if I could do that online. So I think some of those segments, which is on where it is a lot more on self-learning, and you would need to you are anyway part of a one-to-many, even in the physical world as well. There could be some things which could be physically there, and the offline part of it would always be there. I mean, the sense to being able to go and see the video would always be there. So I think each segment would have different things, and one should nuance the consumer behavior in each of these segments to lot more customer surveys, talk to as many customers as possible, because these 2 months has been enough experience for many folks to say what they will and what they will not do in future. So I think you should speak to as many people as possible to get your customer expectations right.
So you just spoke about IAS training. So this whole test prep market, is kind of burgeoning in India for a long time. It's a fairly large market. With this changes which are happening in digital online, will quota become history? Will people stop going to a physical place and spend 2 years, 4 years with rigorous training? And in simple words, will quota become history? Quota
I
model.
don't think so. I don't think so, because you need to remember Quota again is again in the K-12 segment,
Right.
and it's not easy for forget about it, 15-year-old. I'm sure you and I will also not be easy to sit in front of a computer and learn on your own. I mean, you might ask us a fact, how are you learning in a 60 child classroom? But still, there is a certain thing about the physical thing that is different, right? And
Okay.
so the experience of being in that quota environment might still be there. So my guess is that, and I could be wrong. I mean, this is all again, trying to look into the future. But I
Sure.
do think that some of those segments, which would be very highly focused and brand name led, and which would looking at these especially in K-12, I think there could be some parts of it which could be online, but there could still be a lot more physical exercise. I mean, I have spoken to many, not met, sorry, I have spoken to many parents in this last couple of weeks, and I can tell you that many of them feel that um, online education works, but we would prefer that they go to a classroom. So I think that but is still there. So, and I think that part of it is not going to go away. So I think that some of the quota thing would remain. Would I
Right.
do it for if I'm doing a government exam? Would I have to go to a neighborhood class where I can just go and learn? Maybe I feel that would go online, because that's something that you could potentially do one to many, and you might do that as well. So I don't think that the physical thing would go away, and there may still be people who would still want that physical thing. So there could be very very highly specialized face-to-face classes that might still happen, but some part of it would definitely. There's a huge potential that a large part of that would go on.
So there are a couple of questions people are asking again, including Dheeraj Wadhwani and a couple of them. I'm trying kind of paraphrasing them. They are saying, how does good content compete with free? There's so much free content available from MOOCs, and I mean, you mentioned about brand owner. Maybe you might want to embellish your comments a little bit quickly, because then we'll move on to the next question. Because this, at least 5, 6 people have asked, saying that free is available. How do I compete with free?
Absolutely, you cannot compete with the free content. And so anybody who is offering content or creating content has to think 10 times, because content is available. But the issue is that I don't know what is that content, which one is correct, which one is not wrong.
Correct.
So if you can build a brand on saying that I can identify the correct content, if I can offer that right content, I think that's where you can build your name. There's no point in, I mean, there's enough content that's available, the free content. But it's like your WhatsApp fake news. You never know which one is right, which one is wrong. And if I am a parent, I would rather not get my kid to waste 5 hours trying to find out and see through it to find out which one is correct, versus somebody giving the right answer, and maybe explains it in 2 or 3 different ways, so that uh, my child can pick up which one is relevant, or which one helps them understand, right? So if I were to look at it from that perspective, as then it changes that whole thing. So you would need to focus on the fact that, can I get you to the right answer? Google does not necessarily build all the answers themselves. They are trying
Right.
to do it based on an algorithm. So similarly, try to see is the fact that how can you get the person to the right content, and that's how you make that choice. Let's say. So if you are, for example, having an online courses, right, online tuition, then how are you ensuring that your tutors are good? So
Right.
you would need to be focusing on that, rather than saying that, saying that I have 100,000 teachers versus the fact that I have 1,000 teachers who have this particular thing, and hence they charge premium. They will ensure that your kids will get educated.
Great. Let me switch gears. So there are a lot of questions have been asked on saying that, roughly saying in this words, all this is fine, being digital and online, but what about Bharat? The kids studying in Bharat, 300 million kids in K-12, 60% are, in government schools. A lot of people cannot afford either Wi-Fi, technology, devices. What is it, a challenge or is it an opportunity for someone to
Absolutely.
come up with? What is the view? Will there be
I
an
think it's
inclusive solution? Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. No,
No,
I
that's
think it's a huge opportunity. And see, so two things. One is the fact that telephone penetration has happened. So it's not that it has not happened. So it's about creativity and the quality of content that you can deliver to these kids. So it may not be in the traditional sense of saying that use a laptop, do this, do that, whatever, but are there other ways that you can reach out? I think that entire market has barely been scratched. It's just not scratched because there is not much that has happened on the B2C space on that one. There is not much of content available in different languages. While I mean, I agree that YouTube has lots of content of different things, but focused on, especially if I look at the K-12 segment, there's nothing that says, where I can reliably say that there's no branded content that tells me that I can take this for class 8 Telugu and I would reach there. So that place is still vacant as of now, and that's a huge opportunity. The opportunity on for the state government exams and for even in the employability skill set as well, that is a huge opportunity there. So I think that while the English speaking markets have been largely tapped, the non-English speaking Bharat vernacular space is still vacant. Um, the need is to get appropriate business models and technology. I think technology needs to play a huge role to see how you could use the existing content and how could you create that access that's important. Because how does a child who has a telephone and has a question, maybe how does that question get translated into a particular language, pulls out all the right answers, being able to push that back. But that business models can possibly work, but somebody has to be innovative about it, and that's a huge opportunity. That's you rightly pointed it out.
Rama, I don't know if that's a fair comparison, but in the retail sector, people are really excited with WhatsApp collaborating with Facebook and with Geo, and they're hoping that it will really reach the last mile in terms of getting all these people on the digital platform. I hope something similar as a game changer happens for the education sector as well.
Absolutely true. Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure that that's going to happen because, you know, the good thing about in India is the fact that I'm not talking of the really bottommost 300, which are
Yeah.
tribal and maybe don't have access to it. But there's a huge 500, 600 million population, which has aspiration levels.
Right.
And so today, even if they may have gone back to the village, they may have done everything, but they still want that their child should do better than them. Right? And so that, as long as that intention is there, they will they will pay for it, right? And so even if you go to the municipal schools today, there are different kinds. Even within municipal schools as well, you will see that there are kids whose parents are willing to spend so that their kids would learn. So I think that it's about those nuances and how do you catch those ones that are there. But I do think that that opportunity is there, and within that itself, there is a large part where people have the money and they have the intent to pay as well, but they don't have the right ways. They don't know how to do it because they are first generation themselves, and so they just don't know how to do it. So if there are people who can reach out to them, I think there's a huge opportunity that's there.
So there's a viewer called Kashyap Kampola. He's been persistent with asking that, what is it that you look at before investing in an education company? And maybe since it's persistent, you could also provide for all the viewers, if someone wants to reach out to Ankur Capital, which is a proper way to reach out, is the email or website or whatever. So it's a good segue into talking about a little bit about Ankur Capital, and then we'll come back to the other questions.
Sure. So do reach out to us at info@ankorcapital.com. We look at every email that comes in there. So definitely write to us at Anchor Capital. So Anchor Capital invests into technologies. We are focused on technologies for the mass markets. So the mass markets would mean the 600, 700, next billion that we are talking of, which is looking to upgrade themselves, which is looking for opportunities, whether be in the fragmented markets that are there in those, so technologies which help in interdisintermediating across agri-tech, health tech, ed tech, fintech. We look at all those ones which are looking at mass markets. So for us, two things that's very, very important. One, which is looking at technology. The technology has to be the backbone for the company. And the second, that you are looking at mass markets. So you're not looking at a niche consumer segment, urban consumer segment, but looking at a much wider market. So that's the core focus of the fund. What we are looking at is, again, vernacular technologies, for example, the ones that you brought up. That's right up our alley. Um, the part that you sorry, the focus was on what do we look for, right? Yeah.
Correct.
So as absolutely. So one is the fact that, do you know the consumer that you're trying to reach? What will that consumer pay? Is that consumer paid today? What is the lifetime value of that consumer is going to be with you? What's your cost of acquiring that customer? Do you think you will get to enough volumes to be able to scale up? And how large is that market? So exactly the question that came up in the prior to this, saying that people are willing to pay small sums of money. Right? It's okay if they pay small sums of money for a particular thing, but if they're going to pay 25 times over, say, the next 3 years, then if I can make 3,000 rupees from that particular customer, and I have to spend only 300 rupees to get that customer on board, it's still a viable solution. And if there are 100 million customers who can do that, that makes it viable for me. So the question is the fact that even if I pay small amounts, is that a $5 billion opportunity? And that's exactly not just in India, but globally as well. Because today, if you see that most companies, most of the opportunities are global and not necessarily only India focused. And so it's very, very important that you look at the global markets. Most of these things are very generic. So it becomes very, very important to look at global markets as well. So those are broadly things that we would look for. First thing is the fact, how much homework has the entrepreneur done? Has the entrepreneur really gone about and checked whether the consumer would pay for it, and has got the business sense to be able to figure out that even if I charge 100, it's not 100 out of, if the opportunity is 500 rupees, but I'm going to spend 1,000 rupees to get the customer on board, then you don't have a business model to work on. So I think the business model becomes very important. And it goes beyond cost. That's the most important thing that we have to check.
Sure. So great, Rama. We have still a lot of questions, but maybe I'll take the last two. We're already 35 minutes into a conversation. I didn't realize. I want to ask a specific, some person has asked a very specific question on students going abroad from India. And there are startups in that space. We have seen a couple of them. Will that market change? As in, will less people go? Will there be some hybrid model which these institutions will come up with? What's your quick view on that?
My guess is that it will not go down, because people who are spending money in order to send their children abroad, and that specifically I say people are spending money because in India, is the fact it's the parents who do that, right? It's not the child who learns himself to do that. So they are doing it specifically for the experience. So that's not going to come online. In fact, there have been various reports that say that kids who have got admissions for this fall or early spring next year are willing to push it out by 2 years because they would rather wait and get the experience of being there personally rather than do it online. So my guess is that this market would come back. There might be a year when things might be low, but it would definitely pick up, going forward. And I think that there are enough places that are opening up globally. So I think if not for this fall, but by next year, definitely it would come back to normal. I don't think that many of them would do it as they might be willing to do something which is hybrid, but I think that people would prefer the full hop because it's all about experience rather than just the learning and degree. And I think the kids themselves would prefer to do it that way.
Okay, great. It's all about learning and experience. Rama, you've covered a lot of ground. I would like you to start winding down our discussions. Uh, we as being early stage investors at 100x, we see a lot of early stage people. They are fairly excited. Most of them have want to churn the ocean, want to change the world. Uh, but when it comes down to real understanding, the way you mentioned that how good is the entrepreneur at understanding the problem and having touched the problem, having gone down to the field. Do you want to give some tips on, let's say there are young, let's say 21-year-old or 20-year-old wants to get into education sector, wants to make a difference. What are some things he or she should do to get into the sector? She's motivated, let's say, but what are things she should do to get into the sector as a startup, and what are things she should not do? And the last question I would like you to wind up after that is, do you see this as an opportunity for the education sector, the current thing, or is it a crisis? So let's say 2 years down the line, if you're talking again at this time, do you think the sector would have changed dramatically for the better, or would it have kind of shrunk a little bit?
Okay.
Yeah, over to you.
So the first part of it, in terms of the entrepreneur, I would say that know your consumer well, and the amount of time that you spend in knowing your consumer expectations, whether how much they are willing to pay, what they would pay, tracking the consumer behavior is very, very important. And I think that the more you're able to do that, the better is where I think that that's where the focus should be on, is that. So the a lot of what we do comes from personal experiences, right? And say that most of the entrepreneurs build their businesses saying, I went through this, and so I had this problem and let me solve that problem. I think that also to understand is the fact that every consumer is not going to be yourself. Right? A lot of entrepreneurs just focus on self, but I think that you need to understand the fact who's the entrepreneur, who's the consumer who's going to buy your product. So speak more often to that consumer
Sure.
than assume what I would do. Right? I mean, so
Okay.
that's one thing that I would want them to focus on as well, and get your unit economics right. How much would people be willing to pay? Don't compromise on building your brand, because a lot of folks think that advertising is equivalent to brand building, and that I would do it now, I would do it later, blah blah blah. I think that you have to focus on how do I create a brand.
Sure.
Education is all about brand. Every education company, institution has built its brand by spending on quality, and spending not just on quality but on perceived quality, and on communicating that I have this quality, so it doesn't build on its own. So focus a lot on brand building, which is on quality, and letting that people know about that quality. How do you let people know that quality becomes very, very important, right? So those are two things that I would
Sure.
focus on, and the unit economics of how that works is the third thing. And I definitely think
Opportunity or crisis? Yeah.
I
Sorry,
think it's
come
an
again.
opportunity. I think
Okay.
it's an opportunity. I won't say that. I wouldn't say it's going to be 100% change where everything would happen online. Like I said, I definitely think that the going abroad segment will go back to being going abroad segment. The K-12 segment would definitely be a lot more classroom based. Students, whether it's university education, all of those, there is a certain segment which would be physically held, right? And I don't think that would change. So today we might have online classes being done, all of that, but I think over a period of time that will get back to normal. But there would be certain segments, and which is a vast, vast market, which is even for the K-12 segment itself, there's so much that the kid can do on his own, be it your homework, be it your school tuition or learning new things, or parts of what they were doing in school, as well as in terms of the school itself giving some of the homework online and stuff around that. All those could be permanent changes because those are convenience factors where you don't need the physical thing to happen. So I think those would definitely change, and that's a huge opportunity. The entire Bharat that we spoke of as, I think, a huge opportunity that's there. The employment factor is going to be, the employability segment is going to be huge. So we are talking of a huge billions of dollars of market that's there. So I urge all these entrepreneurs that till now, what was a push product, you're sitting on the verge of many of these turning to be pull products. You're seeing parts of it, and that will continue to be pull products. All that you need to do is to get that thing, the exact thing of what the consumer wants. The other thing I would focus on is the fact on technology, because basically there is a whole lot of content that's available. How do you pick the right content? How do you make the right connects? How do you customize at each part of it? And where you could do language translations, a lot of it would need technology backbone. I would urge all of the entrepreneurs to look at this as an opportunity. And I'm sure 2 years from now, Ninath, some of the companies that you're investing in would all be unicorns. They will reach unicorn status much sooner than other segments.
On that happy note, I would like to bring this to a close. Rama, I'm so delighted you're here. You spoke about everything, from K-12 to higher education to going abroad to test prep, employability. I don't think we left out much. And Bharat, more importantly, you spoke about a lot of this. But I can't let you go before asking one last final question. That's something a little personal. I believe you like to grow plants. Is there any new hobby, new thing which you have picked up in the last 2 months in the lockdown? I'm sure viewers will be happy to learn about that.
Unfortunately, no. I have always thought, my whole life, I always felt that I have enough to do for 10 lives. I have enough things that I would like to do. And I always think is the fact that I will spend some time going deeper into it and becoming an expert on that. But I haven't done that. So the thing is, my plants, I think, love me a little more because I happen to talk to them a little bit more. I don't know, but that's all that I would say that. But I definitely think that, every time that I look at e-learning on that front, I would think of the fact that I must go and learn, or rather my interests are so many. I have so many interests that I feel that, I must do a course on something and get myself deeper into it. But I think post-COVID.
Okay,
COVID has made me inefficient, I think so. Post-COVID, I need a classroom to go to.
Maybe 2 years from now, when we chat again, I would hear that, I've done so many courses, so much thing.
Absolutely. And maybe some of it could be online, some of it could be offline.
Sure. Thank you, Rama. Thank you for joining us today. You covered a broad spectrum of topics. You give really specific instances of opportunities. I wish we could have gone on and on, but we already spent 45 minutes chatting. I didn't realize. And thank you, viewers, for joining us. Thank you, Rama. We hope some of them reach out to you from the email ID you've given. And we hope you have inspired all these guys, all these viewers to become entrepreneurs in the education industry. It beckons you. A lot of opportunities. Rama has told you. Be there, do it. Do it today. Thank you, Rama. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ninath, for organizing this. Really appreciate it. And you guys are doing a great job. I'm sure that both of us together would be able to look at a lot of education companies in the next few months.
Thank you.
And all entrepreneurs out there, go out, do it. You have the have it in you to be able to take this opportunity on head on.
Thank you, Rama. Thank you.